It's a different industry than I think a lot of people realize. I used to make the joke that if I ever lost this job somehow when I was doing sales and I ended up in retail, I'd have to say, okay, put a sign in the window that says, t-shirts, $50 or best offer, let's negotiate. Because when you're in a commodity-based world, everything's a negotiation. Literally every day, every hour, every minute, it's a negotiation. And when you get that into your blood, it's tough to get it out.
Welcome to the Systems Edge. This is a podcast where we talk about operations and not just operational excellence, but sometimes, we get into the weeds and we talk about what's not working and some of the pain that people and at least executives like my guest is today about, struggles that companies have, but maybe how they're solving them too. And so today, my guest is Jeremy Rosenbeck, president of Republic Wire. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I always start off by asking, what do you guys do? Tell us a little bit about your company and maybe a little background on yourself. It doesn't have to be a full-on resume, but in your own word, not the LinkedIn version, right? But more being your own words. And that'd be great.
Sure. So Republic Wire has been in business for about 42 years, a little bit longer than that, about 43 going on mid-year this year. And we are heavily entrenched in the construction industry, but we are the kind of the middle point. So we produce copper wire, building wire, and residential. So our production lends itself towards large commercial structures, housing, of course, family homes, things of that nature. Everything that we produce in-house is all made here in the U.S. So we've been in the U.S. our entire existence. We're happy to say that we're proud made in the USA. And I would say from an overall standpoint, we are international, but probably about 90% domestic, about 10% international. So we do have a fair amount of international business, but once you get into the metric system and things like that, it creates some problems in the copper wire worlds. It creates a little bit of challenges there from a standpoint of what we produce for the US in comparison to the rest of the world. But we've been growing tremendously. Living in Cincinnati, Ohio, have been here our entire existence. And I've been with the company personally for about 30 of those 42 to 45 years. I joined the company in 1998, so I've been here since 1998, done a little bit of everything inside the company. Everything from starting in inside sales, did a little bit of accounting, which is what my degree is in. Did a little bit of accounting way back when I was in college as a little bit of side help for the company. And then worked my way through inside sales, operations, daily operations, overall operations, VP of sales, national accounts manager to now president. So I've touched a lot of different parts of the company, which in my estimation makes it a lot easier for me to do a lot of the different things that I do. I can sit in front of a customer and talk very poetically about our operations and give them a very open look at what we can and can't do. And I can say it with very heavy confidence because of the fact that I've spent so much time in operations. And then on the other side of it, I spent a large portion of my career in sales. So I've had to spend a lot of time going on cold calls, doing the customer base building, fostering those customers, growing them into what they are for us now.
Mm-hmm.
We currently sit on about 700,000 square feet.
Wow.
So we have we just opened a 300,000 square foot distribution center last year. We have 400,000 square feet of production facility about 2 miles away from here. And we just opened our 20,000 square foot new office as of March of last year. So we are growing. We are growing fast. It's creating some challenges along the way, but for the most part, it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. It's a different industry than I think a lot of people realize. I used to make the joke that if I ever lost this job somehow when I was doing sales and I ended up in retail, I'd have to say, okay, put a sign in the window that says, t-shirts, $50 or best offer, let's negotiate. Because when you're in a commodity-based world, everything's a negotiation. Literally every day, every hour, every minute is a negotiation. And when you get that into your blood, it's tough to get it out. So, from that standpoint, if I ever had to do anything else, I'd have to figure out a way to create a negotiation or else I'd be bored out of my mind. But commodities fast-paced. It's not for everybody. I remember the first year I was in, one of our long tenured, we have agencies around the country. And one of our long tenured agents at the time called me and said, I'll know by the end of the year. That's all he told me. And I said, you got to give me more than that. And he said, you're either going to love this or you're going to absolutely hate it. And by the end of this year, you will know. You're either going to be in it for the rest of your life or you're not, you're going to want out right away. And he literally, he hit it right on the money. By
Hmm.
the end of that first year, I was so entrenched in
Hmm.
everything, the fast pace, the negotiations, all the different things that were ins and outs of the commodity industry. It just made it fun and it
Hmm.
made my career fun. And I've done I think an okay job for myself over the years to work my way up to where I'm at now. And it's been a fun ride. It's been a really fun
Yeah. Well, walk me through the life cycle of your core product from first touch to delivery. What's that look like?
Okay. Well, so let me kind of classify this for you. So there are basically 7 steps in our portion of the industry. You've got the people who mine the copper, then you have the people that take out the impurities. So you have your smelters, and then you have your people who make what we call copper rod, which is what we take. And then we're right there in the middle. So we're smack in the middle of that 7. So we're step 4 from the bottom, step 4 from the top. And then we manufacture the material. And then after we manufacture, it goes to distribution. Distribution sells to end or the contractor who eventually gets to end user, installs for end user. So we're right there in the middle. But we basically take 5/16" copper rod and we draw it down to a number of different sizes depending on what we have needs for. We go as small as an 18 gauge and we go as large as a 750 MCM, 1000 MCM gauge. Give you kind of an idea, 1000 MCM is about that thick around and 18 is about that thick around. So widespread of gauge sizes, but we use them or we produce them based on what our needs are. We are a stock and flow. So we are built around volume. In a commodity based industry, you really need to be built around volume if you want to make profit because the margins are always going to be, you can never gauge what your margin is going to be because today it could be this, tomorrow it could be that, depending on the negotiation. So from that standpoint, not to mention the flexibility in copper on the trading market. So from that standpoint, in a overall sense, we are more building to stock and then selling out of stock. So
Mm.
while we do job specific things and we do things of that nature that are directly related, quoting, building the product specifically for a job, it is still a standard product that we produce. So there is still some stock flow through that as well. So, in this type of industry and in this type of situation where contractors need stuff just in time, distributors need stuff just in time, ever since really COVID, the stress has been put more on the manufacturer from that sense to stock more capital investment in stocking in facilities, things of that nature, so that these distributors and contractors don't have to utilize their capital as much to stock the inventory. So a lot of just-in-time type stuff, a lot of long-term contracts, and from a sense of what we're producing, it goes through a cycle of drawing and bunching, what we call bunching, which is actually a stranding. It takes multiple individual strands and kind of pulls them together to make one. Then an extrusion process, and then of course the shipping process. So
Hmm.
that's kind of the quick overview look at it.
What are some of the key systems or platforms your business relies on to manage this intensely fast paced environment you're describing? You must have a
Well,
lot of them.
believe it or not, Excel is our favorite. From a standpoint of when you're talking about different ways to manage things, and obviously we have our system, our software system that manages all of our production and does all of our calculations with sales and all the standard software stuff. But to be perfectly honest, so let's go back to say early 2000s before software systems became all the rage, so to speak, and everybody was switching over to this one or that one or whatever it may be, those software systems, you pretty much were isolated on Word and Excel. And so our sales department and myself in general got so heavily reliant on Excel with the way we were doing things. We had profitability sheets built, we had pricing structures built, we had all these different Excel sheets built in the hundreds. And when we went to our software system and we became, and we started a new software system in 2019, we were actually, believe it or not, we were on a reality based system until 2019. So we weren't even online with our software up until 2019. So we went online with a group called OHM Systems. They specifically built something for us. So we sat down with them, went through the whole process and kind of detailed it out and said, this is what we need to see. And so we rely on their system for all of our standard day-to-day stuff. From there, it really flows into Excel, and we do a lot of Excel work, a lot of Excel pages, things of that nature. When you get into the weeds of the production and things like that, you've got multiple different companies coming in and putting something in there that we utilize, whether it be microscopes with the Key Inch group, or different styles of printer for the product or for the labels, and then all these different pieces that mold together to make basically one, and then it all feeds back into that system that I was talking about. So
That's awesome.
it's different because you take like a system like a SAP or an Oracle, right? And they are more distribution based. When you put a piece in, they want to get a piece out, right? So it's a one-to-one. With our system and with the way our production happens, you can't do that because you have so much tension on the wire while you're drawing or while you're bunching or even while you're extruding the product, that you're going to put it in at 100,000 feet and get 110,000 feet out.
Hmm.
So you can't have a system that wants one in, one out, and get one in and 1.1 out. So,
Mm.
that confuses those systems and it creates some problems in those systems. So we had to go find somebody specifically to build
Yeah.
up something that could account for that.
Yeah, you were a good case for custom software in that
Yeah,
situation for sure.
exactly.
So, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because I'm always telling people, like, if and kudos, by the way, to you guys, if Excel's working for you. I've seen companies, huge companies running on Excel, and if
Yeah.
it's working, it got you there. But I'm curious, though, when I hear that, like, where the systems work well together and where they're disconnected. And maybe they're not. Maybe you've got some pretty
They're
cool
completely
reporting built in, and that's,
No, they're completely disconnected. So
okay.
Excel, while we can pull stuff out of them in Excel,
Hmm.
and we can implement things into from Excel. The systems the sheets that we utilize within Excel, the number of formulas and things of that nature, it doesn't communicate with our other system. So, when you're talking about, we would lose all that or all the formulations that we would create in there. And some of these Excel sheets that we have, like I remember one Excel sheet before we got the production system that I had developed for our operations group, and it went from A to I think DZ across, and then it went from 1 to I think 110 down.
Wow.
So it took you 5 minutes just to scroll across the entire sheet. It was absolutely ridiculous. It took me I think 6 months to produce this thing.
Hmm.
But it gave us literally everything. You could plug in numbers on production and you could see how that would relate to percentage wise all the way out to our best year, the optimal production minus downtime, optimal production minus downtime minus personnel. I mean, you could go out 15 different categories on every single production line that we had, and it would give you a comparison on everything. Now, in today's day and age, I could probably tell AI to create that for me in 5 minutes. But in that day and age, which was 2002, 2003, I had to sit down and sit there and develop that thing out. So the one problem I do have with Excel is that, in that scenario, you have to develop everything. You can't just, go in and it's going to be available to you like some software systems where you just
Yeah.
write a report for it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is the one problem, but we got so used to it that it became
Yeah.
second nature for us.
Yeah.
And
It's your source of truth at the end of the day. It's where
yeah,
everybody goes when they need something.
the guys were more confused about trying to get into the OHM system and figure out the sales system in there. And I said, you know what? We're going to hurt our sales if we keep doing this.
Yes.
Just keep selling off the Excel sheet.
Yeah, it's a tough transition,
Yeah.
yeah. Adoption is, huge issue. So, what's one process you wish took half the time?
Yeah.
You
Just
probably go,
production in
this one,
general.
production. Yeah, right.
If I could produce twice as much, I'd be a lot happier camper.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you're looking at that all the time at how to do that. So,
Honestly, it's not even really software based or anything like that. The one it's not even a process really. It's more the development of processes. So one of the biggest things that at least I have found, and I've been in this role for about 12 years now. And when I took it over in 2014 or whatever it may have been, we had been growing so fast that we had lost our way on some things, right? So we had so focused on the sales. We so focused on, the production, hitting numbers, hitting goals, all those different things, making sure we were profitable, all that stuff, that we lost our way on things that, while they were easy to slide through the cracks, they were very crucial parts of our company to continue to grow. Things
Mhm.
like safety protocols, things like we've always been very good about like a benefit structure and things like that. We feel like we've always been that type of company that feels that that's a moral responsibility for us. You're coming in, giving us your day, you're giving us 8 hours, you're working hard. We can cover your health insurance, right? We can
Mhm.
we can help you get good health insurance and maintain that health insurance at a good cost. So,
Mhm.
things like that, those little things that aren't that, they're not things that you want to push aside. They just happen to fall by the wayside because you're so focused on everything else. So
Mhm.
about the last 4 or 5 years, and COVID really kind of, a lot of people had a bad year in COVID. We actually had a really good year in COVID. We were considered essential from day one because we do provide to the utility industries. And we were actually hiring again by June 15th of that year. And we actually had a 10-point plan that myself and my managers sat down and developed. Nobody knew what was going to happen. So we developed a plan that went out a year and a half and took us all the way down to a skeleton crew.
Mhm.
And so luckily for us, we only had to enact plan number one, which was we asked one guy to take early retirement and covered his COBRA for a couple of months
Mhm.
before his retirement was actually going to happen. And then we released all our temps. So
Mhm.
beyond that, we never had to go and release a single employee. So
That's awesome.
but the thing that COVID did for us more than anything was it brought some of those things to the forefront. Me having that extra time to go around the facility and check things out, or sitting at home because our legal team sent all our executives home, sitting at home and just going through things, right?
Mhm.
Just going through, okay, where was this? How come we don't have processes and procedures on this? How come we're not locked down on this? And going in and meeting with my management staff and saying, okay, why are we missing this? And
Mhm.
everybody would just kind of shrug their shoulders. We don't know. So that allowed me to see some things that I probably wouldn't have seen if we would have just kept going as normal. And, it allowed me to kind of take a step back, look at some things from a 10,000-foot view and say, okay, we have got some major pieces missing that we really need to address, or else we're going to get ourselves into some trouble moving down the road. So
Mhm.
we rebuilt all of our safety protocols, we rebuilt all our
Wow.
different infrastructure things, and now we're blowing and going, and now we can get back to our focus on production. And we kept that focus the whole time with the outer pieces saying, okay, let's move this in, let's move that in. You find yourself, when you're a family owned company, you find yourself very lean at times when you can't be lean as well.
Mhm.
One of the things you find is that you miss out on things that you didn't know you were missing out on just because guys get used to doing everything, right? Somebody like myself, at one point in time, I was the overall operations manager and the VP of sales. So I was doing both of those jobs that are really two major jobs for two people to do,
Mhm.
and I was doing them myself.
Mhm.
So we came to find that we had guys that were not focusing the time and effort that certain things needed to that job because they had two or three hats they were wearing and they had to be able to fit all of them in a day. So we've done a lot of that here recently, is kind of expanding our staff, not anything massive, but moving
Mhm.
pieces around, adding a piece here or there, restructuring some management groups, things like that, to kind of get some better oversight and get a better look at what we need to be doing better.
It's never ending, isn't it? Never ending. I mean, especially with the shifting, whether it's geopolitical or culture or technology, it just everything's just shifting constantly underneath our feet. I mean, personally, we feel it all the time too, right? With whether it's a cell phone or haven't learned, AI or, well, when, now we're talking about robots in our homes, that sort of thing. But yeah, it is what it is. And so in light of that, it's really cool you were able to zoom out like that and kind of
Yeah.
that blessing in disguise for COVID. I have not heard a whole lot of people that were able to take advantage of it the way you took advantage of it. Kudos
You
to
know,
you guys for doing that.
thank you. I am very adamant with my group that no matter how bad the year is, you can always find something positive.
Hmm.
And if you don't find something positive, you're not looking hard enough, or you haven't done enough of what you need to be doing. In that particular scenario, we were able to take a step back and find some. While they were negatives that we
Hmm.
found, they were positives that we did find them. You know,
Yep.
and it jumped us forward pretty tremendously in a short period of time in comparison to what we had been doing.
That's fabulous. So are there any blind spots where the data isn't clear or fast still that you're working on?
Yeah, we are delving into AI now. Um, I have one of my CFO, oddly enough, he's a very technology guy. He's very technology based. So I've kind of tasked him along with our IT guy to kind of get a look at AI and get some generalized knowledge on it. Start to look for who could be or which group could be a good form for us to get. I think the biggest concern with AI, at least from my vantage point, right, is do we get into something and then within 3 months, 6 months, a year, that one's outdated and we have to switch to another one, or we're in one and then this one takes a huge technology jump and we could have really benefited more from their technology jump. So we're looking at some different systems that more pull from multiple AI systems rather than just isolating ourselves to one. So I've had the benefit of going to a couple of seminars and meeting some people at those seminars that are local individuals that either have already instituted some AI or are further along in their investigation, so to speak. And those individuals have kind of brought my knowledge forward a little bit. And then I've been taking that knowledge back to our CFO and my IT guy and saying, "Hey, go down this path a little bit, or go down this path a little bit. See where this rabbit hole leads." And sometimes it comes back, yeah, that rabbit hole was bad. It didn't do us any good. And sometimes it comes back, hey, I'm going to keep looking down this rabbit hole because I've found a few things, and I think if I go a little deeper, I can find even more. So, you know, it's an ongoing process. The good thing for us is that AI really would only be an office thing for us. It would be very hard to implement in the production process. There are some things that we think it can do in the production process, but we haven't seen it capable of doing those things yet. And that could be very simply something that isn't developed yet, or it could be very simply something that we just don't know well enough how to use it to utilize it that way. But for the most part, if we're going to be any value in AI, it's going to bring to us, it's going to bring it to us in the office, specifically in the accounting end.
Hmm.
That's where when you're throwing numbers around and things of that nature, I think that's where it seems to be, at least in our estimation, that's where it seems to be the most beneficial.
Yeah, yeah, and you gotta start somewhere, it's like, put dipping your toe in the water, and what I've told people too is, like, it depends on how you're gonna use it as to
Mm.
what AI makes sense for you, because those large language models are all trained differently. I was
Yeah.
talking to one guy the other day, and they're a chemist, and they have a specific LLM that's trained on chemistry, and, they can dump their formulas into it, and it understands them,
Mhm.
way better than maybe, something that's maybe more in
Yeah.
your niche.
And I think that's kind of the thing, right? I mean, I think our systems are defined enough
Mhm,
and we have enough automation in our facility that I don't think that the AI can jump us forward a tremendous amount, right? I think there's a lot of industries out there and a lot of people out there that so the benefit's going to be massive, right?
mhm,
And then there's other groups like us where there's going to be a benefit. It's just a matter of quantifying how much that benefit's going to be. Is it worth this? Is it worth the ROI? Because that's really what it all comes down to when it comes down to business is, do you get a return on your investment? And if you
right,
get a return on your investment, you're going to get into it. And if you don't
right,
get a return on your investment, you're going to stay away from it. So, it's a very straightforward conversation when I have it with people. And, everybody says the same thing. Well, I can't believe you're not in AI yet. And I'm like, I can't find the ROI yet. But
mhm,
until I find the ROI, I'm not going to invest in it. And Once I see the ROI and I see the benefit of it, then yeah, we'll look at the investment. We'll look at how much that investment needs to be and how long. A good example of that we are solar in our current facility, but in our other facility, we use 14 million kilowatt hours of energy every year. Just an absolute astronomical amount. After we put the solar on this building, which is mainly computer, electrical forklifts, small machinery, lights, things of that nature, minimal stuff to run, I had them do a study of our other facility. We would have covered the entire facility in solar panels and still only been able to collect 35% of our overall energy usage.
Mhm.
That ROI was 57 years. Go to a bank and try to get them to loan you money on a 57-year ROI. They're going to look at you and laugh at you and send you right out the door, no matter how much money you do with them. So, there's certain things that the ROI just makes the difference.
Yeah, yeah. We always try to tell people, take a pain point, a project, an ROI, a potential ROI, and if you can't get your money back in 6 to 12 months in today's environment, move on to find another one because, you really need and there's a lot of them to work on, right? I'm sure you have a wish list of things. In fact, I'll ask that. If you had unlimited budget for the next 90 days, what would you change first, What problems would you solve first? So,
Oh man, if I had an unlimited budget, wow. That is it. That is a question I don't think I've ever been posed. Because most of our machinery is in the $1 to $2 million range every time we purchase ones. I know I have a very finite budget.
yeah.
But wow.
But when you put it in the 90-day context, it does bring it down to things that are a little more in your control
Yeah.
in the short term, right? And it does that focuses you a little bit, in my opinion, on those smaller wins.
Yep.
And so yeah, if there's well, it could be reporting, right? It could be like, oh yeah, this would really help me shave an hour off my day if I did this, that sort of thing.
I think probably one of the biggest things I would delve into is our software system. Um, I've got I've got some questions about it. I don't feel that it operates sometimes the way it needs to. So I honestly would probably look into the possibility of recreating a new one.
Wow.
Much as I would hate to do that, to be perfectly honest, I don't want anything to do with that. But from an overall standpoint, I think that or if nothing else, find some ways to make what we've got better. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not at all disparaging the system. It's a good system for what we do. It's just a lot of little things that could be better. And we're constantly talking to our software people and they're doing what they can to fix those issues. I honestly, it isn't for me, it wouldn't even be the budget that would be the benefit to me. The better question for me, I think, or the better statement for me would be if I had a a quick turnaround on everything I did, right? If I went and bought machinery and I could get it within 2 weeks, or if I went and bought this and I could get it in 2 weeks, then what would I do with my budget? It would go I have a million ideas, right?
Hmm.
You were just
Hmm.
saying the 90-day thing, right? So the unfortunate thing for us is everything that we purchase machinery wise and we build into the system, we're a year and a half out. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're trying to estimate things 2 months or I'm sorry, 2 years prior to make it good when we get there. So from our standpoint, it's not even necessarily the budget, it's more a time thing. From our standpoint, the time and availability of things, because our machinery is so complex in a lot of situations, takes a long time to produce. And then you got to install it. And, then you got to get people up to speed on it and you got to train them on it. And every single new machine we buy has a different technology.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I took over in 14, I made it an edict to all my management staff that I wanted to be fully automated by the time we hit 2025. And we are a year behind, but we're going to have our last two automated machines come in this year
Nice.
and our packaging process is fully automated. So,
Nice.
to have that piece done has been enormous for us. And it's increased capacities, it's decreased downtimes, it's increased uptimes. It's done just wonders for us in our production capabilities. And from my standpoint, I could buy another 10 of those machines and make use of all of them. I could buy
Hmm.
another 10 extrusion lines, a couple more drawing lines, a bunch of bunching lines. I mean, I could really flesh it out quick if I could get a quick turnaround.
Hmm.
And then that would be effective for me.
Yeah. And going back to what you're saying, I've never met a company that I can't say never. There might have been a couple, but pretty rare that their ERP system does everything, including even custom.
Yeah.
And I'll just, I don't want to get too much in the weeds on this example, but our biggest client has probably a $2 million custom ERP system over the years, and it's ridiculous what it can do. And they are in love with data, right?
Yeah.
And man, I wish I could talk for 5 minutes about all the cool stuff you could do with that, but it's a never-ending process because they're always finding more ways, more ways, more ways to refine the data, and they get a new machine in, right? And it's like it's like, ooh, and get all these new ideas and stuff. So yeah, no one ever has it down right perfect.
It's
But
crazy how you can drill down into stuff. And
oh,
I think that's more the question mark in your system, right? If your system is flexible, if your system can change, it can
that's a good
adjust,
point.
it can update itself, or you have a company that does its regular updates or whatever. A good example of that is when we first took over, first got onto the own system, it was on the old Microsoft that is no longer being supported. So they had to move it off to their own set,
Mm,
right?
yep.
So they had to develop that, build it, set it up, and then put us on it. And that took about a year and a half for them to get situated. And we were running right to the edge. I think we were a month from when the support was going to
My
end
goodness.
before we got moved over. So they were made aware of it and they did everything they could to get it done as quickly as possible. But again, it's a whole time factor, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, how
I
uncomfortable
think
is that?
anybody in business would tell you that if they had more time, that would be the best thing for them. If they
Yeah,
just
especially
had
in
more
today's age,
time.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
with what's going on with and we talked about before we got on the call, everything's so siloed and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
so, usually I try to end with AI, but you kind of already covered that and stuff. I'll close with this. So, what advice would you give someone who's kind of, you know, they're in their company, they're 20 years younger than you, and they're asked. My son-in-law works for Keon's, ironically, and his goal wants to work up the corporate. He's already worked up somewhat, but like, they have these aspirations to go do what eventually they see themselves in your role. What type
Yeah.
of advice, just in general, would you give someone 20 years younger than you?
Retire. No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. No.
Don't do it. Don't bother.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Go
know,
work
I
somewhere
think,
else.
you know, I think there's two things in my mind that you have to have in order to continue to climb any ladder, right? One of them is unfettered ambition. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes whenever it takes it, right? When I did operations, I wanted the company to grow. I was fully entrenched in the company. I wanted to see us grow to the point where if I stayed till midnight to help somebody pull an order or, cut an order or do whatever, that's what I did. Didn't think twice about it,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I was here till midnight. I woke up, went home, went to bed, woke up the next morning, came right back in at 7 a.m. It never stopped. So that unfettered ambition you can call it unfettered ambition, you can call it drive, whichever you want to call it, right? You got to have an internal drive that is just cannot be quenched. And that standpoint, you never feel satisfied. It's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time because if you can't control it, it can really screw up your personal life. But in your business life, it can be phenomenal because it's going to drive you to new heights because you're never going to be satisfied with what you've done. You're going to want to do better. The first time I sold $1 million order, I wanted to sell a $2 million order. Second time I sold a $2 million order,
Right.
I want to sell a $4 million order, right?
Right.
So, it was that ambition to always top myself. I wasn't even looking at myself in comparison to people. I was looking at myself and just driving myself forward. It was a internal battle. So that is one thing. And then the second thing, which unfortunately I think is kind of being lost on today's youth and to in some extent is that work ethic, that need and that drive to always be at the office and understand that you have to put in your dues. You're not going to walk into an office and then tomorrow they're going to promote you to president. It doesn't happen. You got to show your worth. And, from that standpoint, sometimes that worth doesn't arrive within a month or a year or 10 years, right? We were talking about my history in different ways of where I was within the company. The reason that occurred was every time I went in and told our CEO, hey, I'm trying to get us here. This is holding me back. He would look at me and say, well, if you know so much better, then go fix it. and I would just take the job and run with it, right?
Yeah.
I would take it and say, okay, yeah, I do know better. I can do this better. And, I said two things, but let me add in a third. The third part, because I just realized that after saying that, is you're going to fail.
Mm.
It's going to inevitably happen. I had a deal one time that I thought was going to be a phenomenal deal for our company. It was a long-term contract. It was going to last for 4 to 5 years, and it was $2 to $4 million a year. It's a great deal, right? $20 million over the span of 5 years. We produced the material. It went up in our first batch. It was a $2 million order. The first batch went up, and every single piece of it was wrong. They returned every piece of that wire.
Oh my goodness.
Make it even worse, they canceled the contract the day after
Oh my goodness.
because there was a clause in the contract that if we couldn't match up with their specs exactly, that they could cancel the contract.
Mm.
So I get $2 million worth of material back that I can do nothing else with. Wasn't a normal product for us. It was spec specifically for them, had their name on it, the whole nine. And it sat in our warehouse for a year and a half. And every time the CEO took me past that, he went, "Yep, that's you. Yep, that's you. Yep, that's you." And he reminded me of it every chance he got. And he didn't do it to get under my skin. He didn't do it. He knew me well enough that he knew what he could do to the point, what he couldn't do. But he did it to just remind me, and it was just a reminder that hey, we all fail at something sooner or later. We're all going to hit that wall. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
It's the question mark of can you push through the wall? Can you push through making one of the biggest mistakes? And we were a much smaller company back then. It was a much more detrimental than it would be now to us. Now,
Mm-hmm.
it would be a relative blip on the radar screen. It's
Mm-hmm.
still a big deal, but it would be a relative blip in comparison. And back then, it was a big portion. It was a big chunk of money for us. And looking at it every day and understanding that I made that massive of an error and that I caused our company a $2 million loss, that was a hard thing to stomach. And it made me question some things in the beginning. It made me, little things that I always did confidently in the beginning. I had to learn to push through that. I had to learn to push through the doubts in the back of my head that said, no, you need to double check that again. No, no,
Mm.
I've already double checked it 3 times. It's right. Go with it. Go back to your confident self. Get back to that confidence that you had prior to that deal. And it took probably about 6 months for me to really work my way through it
Mm-hmm.
and with good reason. But on the other side of it, I was able to just kind of swallow it down, and now it's a good story, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a good lesson for people to learn. It's a good lesson story. It's one of those things that no matter what you do, no matter how good you are at what you do, you're gonna fail. You can't get past it. It's gonna happen. And it's a matter of, do you have the self confidence? Do you have the self awareness? Do you have the ability to put that aside and continue forward and understand that, yeah, that may have hurt me for now, but I'm going to find a way that I'm going to show much more worth. And in my sales role, I made the company thousands more, millions more than what I cost them in that moment in time. It took me years to prove that worth again. And you can hit setbacks like that. And those setbacks may or may not hurt you, but you have to find a way to swallow it down, understand that, yeah, I made a massive mistake and I don't want to make that mistake again. Put it in the back of your head, remember it, focus on it. That happened in 2005. I still remember it to this day. I can look in my head right now, I can picture that pile of wire. I know exactly where it was in our facility. I know exactly where to go to look at it. I remember how many reels tall it was standing. I
Mm-hmm.
remember everything about it. But it doesn't change the fact that today I still do $2 million deals on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and I
And you
do
got
them.
past it obviously because now you're the
Yeah,
president of the company. So.
exactly. Yeah, it took me some years, but
Yeah.
that is a big thing, I think. I can't believe I didn't think of that to start with, but that is a huge thing. And even to the point where I teach, my kids that my son's a athlete. I tell him he's a baseball player. He's in a game of failure. I mean, it is literally a game of failure. I we talk about it all the time. Yeah, you're gonna fail. It's gonna happen. You're gonna be in a big spot. You're gonna fail.
It
Swallow it
sounds
down.
cliche-ish, but what you're describing is the old, get up, brush off the dust, and just keep on
Hey,
going.
there's something to be said about that comment that we all kind of grew up with, right? It's not about how
Yeah.
many times you get knocked down, it's about how many
Yeah.
times you get back up.
Yep. I can.
And there's something to be said about that. That is probably one of the better things. And I'll tell you right now, I think a lot of people need to go back to the hey, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will
Yeah.
never hurt me comment. There's way
Yep.
too many people that think words are worse.
Yep. Yep.
So, but
Well,
either way,
imagine if you had never if you took the opposite approach, right? We wouldn't be having this conversation today.
yeah,
So,
yeah. If I would have just crumpled,
yep.
I would not be in this role right now.
No.
And I've had salesmen come to me and they've failed or they've had a massive problem or they've created a problem for the company. And I'm like, all right, good. You've learned that you can fail and it's okay. And we're going to find our way through this. We're going to make our way through it because I had the mentor that allowed me to work my way through it. So, and that's another big part of it too, I guess, is just having the right support structure around you, whether that's in your personal life or in your business life. It's a very important part that I think a lot of people look past.
Yeah.
None
Amen
of
to
us
that.
can do it all by themselves.
No, amen to that. Takes a team. So thanks for walking us through all that.
Absolutely.
Gave us a really honest picture today of your business and what it looks like, not just from what we see on the website, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's exactly why I do this show. Every company has its own unique operations, but the patterns are the same. And
Yeah.
so hopefully the people who are listening, recognize themselves somewhere in some of the things that were said here today. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to do this. And
Absolutely.
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it. And hopefully it turns out good for you.
Thank you.